Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our to-do list app design series into this single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, we are basically going to create this to-do list app using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And this is how it's going to look. And we're going to add all this functionality using JavaScript, and we're going to store this task inside the local storage of the browser so that even if you refresh this page, the task still remains there. And in the end, I will also show you how to add this to your Blogger website. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So let's get started. So this is how it works. We can see that we have these tasks over here, and we can add new tasks by using this input field over here. So if I just type create a presentation, and if I press enter, we can see that the task is added over here. You can also click on this add button to add the task over here. And then we have this button on the left side for indicating that the task has been completed. So right now we can see that this task is completed, so we can just click on it. And we have this different styling for the completed tasks. So we can click on any of these tasks to complete it. And we can also delete these tasks from here. So if I just click on this close icon over here, we can see that the current task is deleted. So in this way, you can delete all these tasks. And if you don't have any task, then we can see that we have this message displayed over here called no tasks to display. Let me go ahead and add a new task. So I'll just tap create a presentation. And now if I refresh this page, we can see that the task is still over here. That's because these tasks are stored inside local storage of the browser. So even if you refresh this page, the task still remains. And if I complete this task and if I just refresh this page, we can see that the state still remains. And if I remove this task and if I refresh this page, we can see that we don't have any tasks. So this is what we're going to design in this tutorial series. Right here I have created this folder called to do app, and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's create the necessary files. So let's click on new file, and let's create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html. And let's create a CSS file. I'll just name it style.css. And let's create a JavaScript file. I'll just name it main.js. Let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code, you can just press exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. And let's link our CSS file over here. So just type style.css. And here in the body, I'll just link the JavaScript file. So I'll just type main.js. Right now let's start with the markup of our design. So the first thing we will do is we'll create a container division. So let's give it a class of to-do container. Now in this container division, the first thing we need to have is this heading. So I'll just create an h1 for that. And I'll just type to-do list. And after that, we need to have these two elements. We need to have the input field and also this button. So for that, let's create a division. And let's give it a class of controls, and in that we will have the input field, and let's give it a type of text, and let's add a placeholder, and let's type enter task. And then we need to have a button. So for the button, let's create a button tag, and we'll also give it a class, and let's give it a class of add button. And in the button, I'll just add this text of add. And now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you have this extension installed, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And we can see that our elements are displayed in the browser. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to display all the tasks. So I'll just create a task over here. And we need to create this icon over here, and then we need to have the task title, and then we need to have this remove button. So let's go back, and here let's create a division with the class of tasks list. Now in this we will have different tasks. So for each of the tasks, I'll just create a division with the class of task. And in this task division, we need to have three elements. One is this button. So for the button, I'll just create a button tag, and let's give it a class of complete button. And in this we need to have the SVG for this icon, so I'll just use heroicons.com for that. Right here I'm in heroicons.com, and let's search for circle. And here we have this icon right here, so I'll just click on copy SVG and let's paste it over here. Right, that's it with the complete button. And then we need to have the actual task title. So here let's create a division and let's give it a class of task title. And here let's add some text for the task. So I'll just tap send an email. And now we can see we have the task displayed over here, and we also have this button. And the icon is not being displayed over here, but we'll fix that using CSS. And the next thing we need to have is this remove button. So for that we'll create a button, and let's give it a class of remove button. And here just type plus, and here we can see we have the remove button. Now we just need to rotate it a little bit so that it looks like this. Right, I think that's it with the HTML of our design. Now let's go to our CSS and let's style it. So here in the style.css file, first of all let's go ahead and target the body, and let's set the font family, and let's set it to Inter and sans serif. And we also need to get the link of the fonts from Google Fonts, and let's also set the color of all the text to 023047. And for the heading we'll also use a font called Poppins. So let's get these two fonts from Google Fonts. Right here I'm in fonts.google.com, and let's search for Inter, and let's select this font, and we need to select the styles. So we need to have the regular style, so I'll just click on regular 400 and let's click on select regular 400. And we also need to have the Poppins font, so let's go back and let's search for Poppins. And let's click on this font, and we need to select the bold version. So I'll just select this semi-bold 600. And now let's click on this button called view selected families, and let's scroll down and let's copy this link from here, and let's go back to our HTML and let's paste it over here in the head section. Right, now let's go back to our CSS file and let's continue styling this. Right, now let's style the container division, which is this division with the class of to-do container. So I'll just type to-do container, and we will give it a padding of 0 top and bottom and 32 pixels left and right. And let's set a max width of 800 pixels, and let's set the margin to 0 auto so that it is in the center. And now we can see that our element is in the center, so I'll just add a background color so we can see it clearly. So now we can see that our to-do container is in the center. Right, now let's style the h1. So I'll just type to-do container h1, and let's set the font size to 32 pixels, and let's set the font family to Poppins and sans serif. And I think this is not the correct font weight, so let's go back to our font link, and here for the weights I'll just change this to, let's try 700, and I think that looks alright. Right, now let's style these two elements which are in the controls division. So let's target that. I'll just type controls, and let's set the display to flex, and let's add a gap of 8 pixels between the elements, and let's type justify content space between so that the elements are on the extreme left and on the extreme right side. Right, now let's target this input field and let's give it a width of 100%. So let's type controls input, and let's set the width to 100%, and now let's add a padding, and let's set the padding to 8 pixels top and bottom and 16 pixels left and right, and let's set the font size of the input field to 16 pixels, and we'll just set the border of the input to 1 pixel solid DDD. So here we have the input field. Now when we click on this, we have this blue outline. So I'll just change this to a different outline. So for that, let's go ahead and type controls input colon focus, and let's set the outline to 1 pixel solid, and let's set the color to 023047. And now we can see we have the correct color for the focus. Right now let's style this add button. So for the add button we have this button with the class of add btn. So let's tap controls, add btn, and let's set a padding of 32 pixels, and let's set the font size to 16 pixels, and let's set the background color to 023047, and let's set the color of the text to white, and we'll also remove the border, and let's set the cursor to pointer. So I'll just tap cursor pointer, and now when we hover over this we have this pointer. So the controls division is completely styled. Right now let's style the task division. So let's type task, because if we go to the HTML file, here we can see that we have this division with the class of task, and we want all these elements to be one next to the other. So let's set the display to flex, and let's set a gap of 12 pixels. And now let's add a background color. So I'll just have background, and let's set the background color to EDF6F9. Right now let's add some margin. So I'll just tap margin, and let's set it to 8 pixels top and bottom, and 0 for left and right. And we'll also add some padding for the task list division. So here we can see we have this division with the class of tasks list. So I'll just target that. Here I'll just type tasks list, and for this one let's give it a padding, and let's set it to 24 pixels top and bottom, and 0 for left and right, and I think that looks alright. Right now let's go ahead and continue styling this. So let's add a padding, and let's set the padding to 8 pixels top and bottom, and 24 pixels left and right. And now let's type justify content space between, and now we need to have the maximum width for this task title. So let's target this. So you can just type task, and for the task title we have this division with the class of task title. So let's tap task title, and let's set the flex to 1, so it will have the full width. And now we can see that it takes up the maximum amount of width. And let's also center everything vertically. So here let's type align items to the center. And for the text I'll just set a line height of 1.8. Right now let's style the complete button right here. So for that we have this button with a class of complete btn. So let's target that. I'll just tap task complete btn, and let's set the border to none, and we need to set a width for the svg inside this complete btn. So here we can see we have this svg inside this button. So let's target that. So I'll just tap task complete btn svg, and let's set the width to 20 pixels. Now we can see that the icon is being displayed, and here let's set a background color of transparent. Now this icon is not exactly in the center, so if I just change this to red color, now we can see that the icon is on the top of this division. So for that we have to set the display to flex, and now we can see that it is exactly in the center. So I'll just go ahead and change this back to transparent, and now let's set the cursor to pointer. So this button is tiled. Now let's style this remove button over here. So for that we have this button with a class of remove btn. So here I'll just type task remove btn, and first of all let's set the border to none, and let's set a background color of transparent for this as well, and let's set the font size to 30 pixels, and let's set the color of the text to red, and let's set the cursor to pointer, and then we also need to rotate this. So I'll just tap rotate, and let's set the value to 45 degrees, and now we can see we have this remove button. And I think with that we have completed designing this UI. So I'll just add a couple more tasks, So let's see whether the styling is correct. So I'll just copy this and paste it 2 more times. And we can see that everything looks alright. So that's basically it with the UI of our app. So we need to add the functionality of adding the tasks over here when we click on this add button after entering the task over here. And then we need to add the functionality of making a task complete by clicking on this complete button, and it should have a different styling. And then we need to add the functionality of removing the task when we click on this remove button. So we're going to do all of that in this video. Let's get started. Right here I'm in the source code, and the first thing we need to do is we need to remove all these tasks from the HTML file. So we need to generate all of these from the JavaScript. So I'll just go ahead and delete these 2 tasks from here. And I'll just keep this single task over here so that we can see how the structure of the task is. So I'll just select all of this task and I'll just comment it. So you can just press command and /. And now we can see that the task has been commented, but we have the code for creating the task in JavaScript. Now if you go back to our website, this is how it looks. We don't have any task displayed over here. So let's go ahead and start with the JavaScript. Now here we can see that we have already linked our main.js file. So let's go to the file. Now first of all, let's create an array. So I'll just name it tasks. And I'll just create an empty array over here. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to reference some of these elements from the HTML. So the first thing we need to reference is the add button. So this is the add button. And then we need to reference this input field because we need to get the data from the input field. And then we need to reference this task list division because we need to add all the tasks inside this. So let's reference these 3 elements. We have these classes add btn, tasks list, and this input field. So let's type const input equals document.querySelector, and we have this container division called to-do container. So let's type .todo container input of type text, and then we need to reference the add button. So let's type add btn equals document.querySelector, and here let's type add btn, and then let's type const tasks list equals document.querySelector, and let's type to-do container tasks list, and here also I'll just type .todo container. Right now that we have referenced these elements, let's go ahead and add an event listener to this add button. So here let's type add btn.add event listener, and let's listen for the click event. Now here we need to create the task using the value from the input. So let's create a variable for that. I'll just type task, and let's set it equal to input.value. And then the next thing we will do is we'll create a function to create the tasks. So I'll just create a function called create tasks, and we'll pass this task value over here. And then we also need to pass a value for whether the task is completed. Here we can see that we have this button for complete task. So if we have the task completed, then we need to have a different styling. So we need to get the data of whether the task is complete or not. So for the second argument, I'll just type false. So by default, the task will not be completed. So I'll just send false by default. And then for displaying the tasks, I'll just create a function called display tasks. So this function will handle displaying it on the screen. So basically writing the HTML. And once we do that, we need to just set this input value to blank. So let's type input.value equals blank. And now let's go ahead and create these functions. So let's create this create tasks function. So let's type const create tasks equals, and here we are getting task and the value for completed. So I'll just call it completed. And let's create an arrow function over here. Now here the first thing we will do is we will check whether the input field is empty. So I'll just change this name to task title, and here also I'll just type task title, and here also I'll just type task title so that it is clear. Right now let's go back over here and let's add an if condition, and let's see whether the task title is empty. So let's type task title dot trim equals empty, and if the task title is empty, then we'll just return from the function. Now we are adding this trim function over here because we need to check whether we have any spaces over here. So if you just have any spaces and if you click on add, the task should not be added. So that's why we are adding this trim. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to add the task to this tasks array. So we can just type tasks dot push, and here we'll just pass an object, and we'll just type task title, and we'll set it equal to task title, and I will type completed, and we'll just set it to the completed value that we get from this function. Right now let's go ahead and console.log this tasks array, and let's see whether the task is added. So let's type console.log tasks, and let's go back to our design, and let's open the console, and here let's type testing, and let's click on add. And now if you open this object, here we can see that we have testing, and the completed is set to false. Let's add one more task. Let's just type the second task, and let's click on add. And now we can see there are two items in this array, and here we have one for testing and the other for the second task. So it is working alright. So let's go back. Now here we can see that we are typing task title colon task title. Now when both these values are same, we can just omit one of these. So we can just type it like this. Right now let's see whether this works. So let's go back and let's type testing, and let's click on add, and now we can see it says testing. So let's type testing 1 2 3, and now we can see it says testing 1 2 3. So it is working alright. So let's go back, and the next thing we will do is we'll create this function. So I'll just call it display tasks. So let's create this function over here. So I'll just type const display tasks, and let's write the code to display the tasks. Now the first thing we will do is, if you don't have any tasks displayed over here, then we'll just type no tasks to display. So I'll just type if, and we'll just reference this array right here. So let's type tasks dot length, and let's see whether it is equal to 0. And if the length of the tasks is 0, then I'll just display no tasks to display. So I'll just reference this element right here, tasks list. So just type tasks list dot text content equals, and let's type no tasks to display. Right now let's go ahead and call this function display tasks in the beginning. So I'll just type display tasks, and now let's go back to our design, and now we can see it says no tasks to display. Right now let's go back and let's write the code to display the tasks. So if we have any value inside this tasks array, then we need to write the code to display the task. But here in this if condition, I'll just type return so that it will stop this function if the tasks is empty. Right now let's go ahead and loop through all the tasks inside this array. So I'll just type tasks dot for each, and for each of the single task I'll just call it t. So let's create an arrow function over here. Right now let's go back to our HTML file, and here we can see that first of all we have this button. So we have this button tag with the class of complete btn. So let's create that. I'll just type const complete btn equals document dot create element, and we'll just create a button. And now let's go ahead and give it a class. So let's type complete button dot class list dot add, and we have a class of complete button. And now inside the complete button we need to add this SVG. So let's copy this SVG from here, and here let's type complete btn dot inner HTML equals, and let's add backticks, and let's paste the SVG code over here. Now we also need to add an event listener for this complete button, but we'll do that later. Before that, let's go ahead and create the other elements. So the next element we need to have is this task title. So let's create an element for that. So let's type const, and I'll just call it title equals document.create element, and let's create a div element, and we need to give it a class. So let's type title.classList.add, and let's type task title, Now in this division we need to add the actual task. So we are getting that from task title inside this array. So let's type title.inner HTML, or we can just type text content equals T, which is each of the items inside the array. We are calling it T dot, and let's type task title. Alright, now let's go back, and the next thing we need to have is this button, and we need to create a button tag with a class of remove btn. So let's type const remove btn equals document.createElement button, and let's add a class. So let's type remove btn dot classlist dot add remove btn. Now in this button we need to have this text of plus. So let's type remove btn dot text content equals plus. And now we also need to add an event listener for this remove button, but we'll do that later. Alright, the next thing we need to do is create this division with a class of task. So let's type const task equals document.createElement div, and let's type task.classlist.add, and here let's type task. And now we need to add this complete button and this task title and also this remove button inside this task division. So for that let's type task.append child, and the first one is complete button, so let's type complete btn, and then let's type task.append child, and we need to type title, and then let's type task.append child, and let's type remove btn. And the last thing we need to do is we need to add this task division inside this tasks list division. So we have already referenced that over here, tasks list. So let's type tasks list dot append child task. Right now let's go back to our design and let's see whether everything works alright. So let's type testing and let's click on add, and here we can see that the task has been added. Now let's type testing 1 2 3 and add. Now we can see that we have testing added once more, and then we have testing 1 2 3 displayed over here. So the previous task is also added once more. So for that we need to go back, and here before this we need to set the HTML of the tasks list to blank. So let's type tasks list dot inner HTML equals blank. Now let's go back and let's type testing, and we have the task displayed, and let's type testing 1 2 3, and we have the second task displayed. So everything is working all right. Right now let's write the function to remove these tasks when we click on this remove button. So for that let's go back to our code, and here we can see that we have created this remove btn. So here let's add an event listener. So I'll just type remove btn dot add event listener, and let's listen for the click event, and let's create an arrow function over here. And now we need to remove the task which is currently being accessed, which is inside this t variable. So we can just use the splice function in JavaScript. So I'll just type tasks dot splice, and here we need to type tasks dot index of, and we need to check the index of t, and we need to remove just one element. So I'll just type 1. Right now let's go ahead and call the display tasks function once again. So now let's go back and let's see whether everything is working. So let's type testing and let's click on add, and we have the task displayed. Let's add one more task. So we have these 2 tasks displayed over here. Now let's click on this remove button for the first task, and we can see that the first task is now removed, and if I click on the second task is removed. So the remove button is working alright. Now let's create the functionality of the complete button. So if you scroll up here we can see that we have the complete button displayed. Now here let's add an event listener to this complete btn. So I'll just type complete btn dot add event listener, and let's type click, and let's create an arrow function. Now here the only thing we need to do is we need to reverse the value of completed. So right now by default the completed value is gonna be set to false. So we'll just set it to true. And if the value is set to true, then we'll just set it to false. So for that we can just type t dot completed equals exclamation t dot completed. So this will just reverse the value. And let's go ahead and call the display tasks function. And here we'll also console.log it so that we can see that it is working. So I'll just type tasks. And let's go back and let's create a task. So we have these two tasks displayed over here, and if we click on this array, we can see that both the values are set to false for the completed. So now let's click on this complete button, and now let's open this, and now we can see that it is set to true. And if I click on it once again, now if we take a look at this, we can see that it is set to false. If I click on the first task complete button, we can see that the first one is set to true. So the completed value is changing. Now we need to update the styles according to this completed value. So we'll also change the icon based on the completed value. And for the styling, we'll add a styling of line through for this text. So let's go back. So here we can see that we have the title. So let's add a style to that. So just type if t dot completed, and if the task is completed, then we need to add a specific styling to this. So let's type title dot style dot text decoration, and we'll just set it to line through. Right now let's go back to our design and let's add some tasks. And let's click on this complete button, and now we can see that we have a different styling. So the complete button is working alright. We'll also change the icon when we have the task completed. Let's go to heroicons.com, and here let's type circle, and we had used this icon right here. And let's go to solid, and we'll use this icon for the completed task. So let's go back to our code, and here we will add a condition. So let's type $symbol curly braces, and let's type exclamation t dot completed, and here let's type question mark. And now if the task is not completed, then we will have this icon. So I'll just add the ending curly braces over here, and let's add this SVG inside single quotes, or I'll just go ahead and delete this SVG from here, and let's copy the icon once more. So here in the first single quotes, we need to add the icon for the not completed tasks, and then let's type colon. And here in the second single quotes, we need to add the icon for the completed tasks. So let's go back to Hero Icons, and let's go to outline, and let's copy this icon and let's paste it over here. And whenever we have this error, we can just type /, and here also we'll type /, and here also, and it will solve the error. Now let's go back and let's go to solid, and let's click on copy SVG, and let's paste it over here. And here also let's type /, and here also /, and here also. Alright, so here we are basically displaying this icon if we have the task not completed, and we are displaying this icon if the task is completed. So let's go back to our design, and let's add some tasks over here. And let's click on this complete button, and we have a different icon. So the styling is working alright for the completed tasks, and even the remove button is working alright. Right now the last thing we need to do is we need to add these tasks to the local storage, so that even if we refresh this page, the task still remains there. So for that, let's go back to our code, and let's create a function for that. And here I'll just create a function, and I'll just call it save tasks. And in this function we can just type local storage dot set item, and we'll just call the key tasks, and for the value we'll just stringify this tasks array. So we can just type json dot stringify tasks, Right now, let's go ahead and call this function in this display tasks function right here. So here I'll just type save tasks. And now when we load this page, we need to get all the tasks from the local storage and we need to store it inside this tasks array. So let's create a function for that. So here I'll just create a function called load tasks. Now here first of all, let's create a constant and let's name it loaded tasks equals, and we need to get the tasks from the local storage and we need to parse it into a JSON format. So let's type JSON dot parse and let's type local storage dot get item and let's type tasks. And now let's add this loaded tasks to this tasks array. So we just type if loaded tasks, then we'll just type tasks dot push and we'll just destructure all the items inside loaded tasks. So all the items will be stored inside this tasks array, and let's call the function over here. So let's type load tasks, and now let's go back to our browser and we have this error. So here we need to type loaded tasks, not load tasks. So let's go back to our browser and let's enter a task. So I'll just type create a presentation and let's click on add, and here we have the task added. So let's click on this refresh button, and now we can see even if we refresh this page, the task is still here. And if I complete this task and if I refresh this page, we can see that the state still remains. So the local storage is working alright. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to add the task when we press the enter button after typing the task. So for that, let's go ahead and let's type input dot add event listener and let's listen for the key up event, and here we'll get a value. So I'll just call it E, and let's add an if condition and let's check whether the key is enter. So let's type E dot key equals enter, and if it is so, then we need to type let task title equals input dot value, and we need to call the create task function, which is this function right here. So let's type create tasks, and we need to provide the task title and the completed. So let's type task title, and by default the completed value will be false. And here we'll just call the display tasks function and we'll just type input value equals blank. And let's go back and let's add a new task, and here I'll just type a new task and let's press the enter key, and now we can see that the task has been added over here. So that's basically how you can create a to-do list application using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now before adding this to our Blogger website, let's fix a bug that we have in our design. Here we can see that we have this task, and if I click on this remove button and now if I refresh this page, we can see that the task is displayed again. So the last task is not being removed. So that's the bug. So let's go back to our code, and here in this code, here we have the code for removing the task, and here we'll also add the code to update the local storage. So if you scroll up, we can see that we have created this function called save tasks, in which we are storing the data to the local storage. So we are storing the data from the tasks to the local storage. So let's call this function save tasks. So here in this event listener for the remove button, let's type save tasks, and now let's go ahead and remove this, and now let's refresh this page, and now we can see that the task is no more displayed. So everything is working alright. Right now let's go ahead and add this to our Blogger website. So let's go to our Blogger dashboard, and we will add this app inside a post. So let's click on new post, and I'll just name it to do app, and here the first thing we need to do is change this into the HTML view. So click on this button and click on HTML view. Now here you can add the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first of all, let's add the CSS. I'll just create a style tag over here, and let's go back to our source code and let's go to the style.css file, And let's copy everything from this line of code till here. Let's copy this and paste it over here inside this style tag. And let's go back to the CSS and let's also copy this color from here. And we'll just keep the font as it is. So let's copy this color and let's paste it over here inside this to-do container. Right now, let's go ahead and add the HTML. So let's go back to our source code and let's go to the HTML file and let's copy all this HTML from this line of code till here. Now you can safely go ahead and delete this code if you want, this commented code. So let's go ahead and copy from here till here and let's paste it over here. And now let's add the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag for that. And let's go back to our source code and let's go to the main.js file and let's copy all this JavaScript from here and let's paste it over here. Right now here we can see that we have some problems in the JavaScript. So what we need to do is we need to make some changes in this conditional statement over here. So here what we are doing is that if the task is not completed, then we are adding this icon, and if the task is completed, we are adding this icon right here. But it is showing some errors over here in this blogger post. So let's go ahead and change this into a simple if and else statement. So I'll just delete all of this from here. And now let's go ahead and add an if condition. So here let's tap if and let's tap t.completed. And here let's copy this line of code from here and let's paste it over here inside this if condition. And let's add an else and let's copy the same code over here as well. Now if the task is completed, we'll just add an icon over here, and if the task is not completed, we will add a different icon over here. So let's go to heroicons.com. Right here I'm in heroicons.com and let's search for circle, which is the icon that we used. So I'll just use this icon right here. So let's click on copy SVG. Let's go back over here and I'll just change this into single quotes because for the SVG we have double quotes. So let's paste the code of the icon over here. And wherever we have line breaks, we'll just go ahead and remove those. Right now, let's go ahead and copy the other icon. So let's click on solid and let's copy this icon from here. And let's paste it over here. So I'll just change this into single quotes and paste the icon over here. And let's remove the line breaks. And now we don't seem to have any errors over here. So let's go ahead and click on publish and confirm. Right here we have our post. So let's click on view. And here we have our app displayed. And we have some problems in the styling. So we'll fix it in a minute. Let's go ahead and test whether this is working. So let's tap task number 1 and let's click on add. And we have the first task displayed. And let's refresh this. And the task is still here. Let's click on remove and it is working all right. Let's refresh this and we don't have any tasks. But I think we have the wrong icons. So here we can see that we have this icon when the task is not completed and we have the other icon when the task is completed. So we need to reverse this. So let's go back and let's go to the post, and here we are checking whether the task is completed. So I'll just add an exclamation over here to reverse this condition. So let's click on update and let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see that we have the correct icons. Let's add one more task. So I'll just tap upload the video and we have the other task displayed over here. And the remove button is also working all right. Right now let's go ahead and fix this text inside this button right here. So let's right click over here and let's click on inspect. And let's scroll down and let's see whether we have any styles by the theme. So here we can see we have this style called word break and it is set to break word. So we need to set this to normal. So let's go back to our post and let's go to the CSS. And here let's type word break and let's set it to normal. And let's click on update. And let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see that the button looks alright. So everything is working alright. Let's delete both these tasks and let's refresh. And we can see that we don't have any tasks displayed over here. So that's basically how you can add a to-do app to your Blogger website. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. And if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.